Hello, dear colleagues. My name is David Violet, and I'm a conference interpreter in San Francisco, California. And I'd like to talk to you today about acoustic shock. We will take a look at what it is, how it can happen, and we'll take a look at a couple of cases in Canada as examples. And then we'll look at prevention and other measures to help. Here we have a colleague in her booth. She's holding a headphone to her ear and to her head, and she's looking out the window of her booth. There is an orange color, but I think it's safe to assume that it's not a fire and that there's not a bomb in the room. But is she safe? It's a rhetorical question, of course. I'm going to say she's not safe because she's allowing a very powerful machine to have access to her ear and her nervous system. That machine can produce exceptionally loud sound. And when something can go wrong, it eventually does, right? So for instance, on December 7th, 2018, we received news that 2 freelance interpreters in Canada had been injured by acoustic shock. Both of them had serious symptoms. One had to be briefly hospitalized and could not work for weeks. And as freelancers, you can imagine the loss of income, but it's worse than that, actually. What is acoustic shock? Well, the cause is a sudden, loud noise. Symptoms can be the same as a concussion, although they can be milder. Nausea, vomiting, loss of balance, fainting, disorientation, and you can have a loss of hearing as well. You can also develop a condition where just anticipating a loud noise can actually cause physical pain. A survey of 60 interpreters in Canada found that 38% had suffered from acoustic shock in the booth. And then, in IEC's own October 2019 survey, over 1,000 respondents declared that 47% had experienced acoustic shock at work. 95% of them were wearing headsets, and 3/4 never reported the incident. Please scan the QR code on the bottom right with your smartphone to get the actual survey results. So how does acoustic shock happen? First of all, it can happen anywhere. But let's take a look at the instances in Canada and get a better feel for what's going on. I think that prevention is so important. I'm hoping that having a concrete and visual feel for what happens will help us in our prevention efforts. Here we have a conventional conference setup with a microphone, the delegates, and the interpreter, thank goodness. In the first of our 2 cases in Canada, on Parliament Hill, one of the delegates brought an earpiece close to a microphone, and it produced feedback. The interpreter ended up going to the hospital, was badly injured, had concussion-like symptoms, and could not work for weeks. Again, think about the lost income, but also the possible damage to your nervous system, and also a loss of hearing. Then, in Toronto, there was a similar case with an added ingredient. A participant was communicating remotely through the poor sound quality of a telephone. To compensate for the poor sound quality, the technician had raised the volume. Then, a microphone was used, and that produced a high volume feedback. Let's take a look at telephone sound. The International Standards Organization provides that interpreters need 15,000 hertz, which is a measure of frequency and clarity. A telephone only provides about 4,000 hertz. Let me use a visual illustration for comparison. Here you can see the words Red Fox clearly as if we were listening at 15,000 hertz. Now, the same words at 4,000 hertz. See how fuzzy they can appear here. So, what can be done? I have 6 recommendations, if you will. The first one is ask your clients if the conference equipment provider has integrated decibel limit protection. The technical term is a compressor limiter. Additionally, this equipment needs to be calibrated properly, not to music, but to interpretation. Many technicians are accustomed to working in a music setting where a pleasant, smooth interruption of sound is best. We, on the other hand, need it to kick in immediately to stop the loud sound from reaching our ears. And this is called a fast attack time. Number 2, once on site, check with the technicians whether the above equipment is present and properly calibrated as discussed above. Number 3, education. Let's educate our colleagues. Tell them, hey, you could be injured by acoustic shock. You or any of us could lose weeks of income and it may damage your hearing. Also still under education, educate our clients. Educate conference organizers, those who call you first and that you may meet on site. If they don't know what it is, tell them all about it. We have pretty good access to the technicians. We can access them and educate them on the conference site. As mentioned above, we can tell them about the equipment and ask about the calibration. We can also educate the companies that provide and install the booths and the sound systems. They play a crucial role. Whenever you are in touch with them, you may try to strike up this conversation. Number 4, fourth recommendation, get your ears checked to set a baseline, which is a graph showing your hearing at various frequencies, and then get a checkup every couple of years for comparison. This can help you determine if acoustic shock has affected your hearing, in which case you may wish to strengthen your protection. Recommendation number 5, keep the interpreter console volume low. Having a high volume setting when feedback occurs, as we've seen in the Canadian case, can lead to acoustic shock. My teacher in Paris, Christopher Thierry, used to always tell our class to lower the volume to the lowest level possible that still allows you to receive the entire message. And this is what I still tell my students today. It's so important. Secondly, do not raise the volume when the sound quality is poor. This is a natural reaction, but it's a very bad habit. When we just can't understand what the speaker is trying to say, we might tend to reach for the volume, and that might not be good for our hearing. I would add that as students and as professional interpreters, we need to watch out for each other. Can you hear the speaker loudly through your colleague's headset? Check to see that your colleague is not turning up the volume simply because the speaker is not clear, or because the sound quality is poor because somebody has walked away from the microphone, for example. Recommendation number 6, buy protective devices. These fit in between your headset and the console. Klaus Ziegler and his group have conducted tests and found that the device marketed under the names Preserve Ear or Adapt Ear, this device works well. A couple of remarks in closing. Once I saw workers in the street using a jackhammer with no ear protection, and I was aghast. I thought, those poor guys are really going to damage their hearing. They were there all day with that terrible racket. Will future interpreters one day think that of us? I recall, as you may also, ejecting my headset straight into the booth window in pain and disgust during an ear-splitting feedback. An interpreter friend tells me he wonders whether his nerve damage was caused by a similar event. Yet, I did not report the event, just like 75% of those in the IEC survey. Am I just like that worker I saw with a jackhammer, just thinking that this is part of the job? Perhaps one remedy might be a reporting procedure that is well known to everyone that would involve organizers and others in a position to stop acoustic shock at the source. Such a reporting system might raise awareness and help us in our efforts for prevention. Thank you.